but they're just not quite there yet. So it means we're not done talking about it. It also means that we may have to ask ourselves some serious questions about whether or not we can even continue to have it. Whether we will get the honest enough to do it. You can say that word too, bad. I don't know. That I can't answer.
Let me pose this, because I do believe we need to revisit everything on a regular basis. So just consider this. He hit on it. Do we still need an international convention? Is it actually serving the fellowship? Now, I did the numbers, and it serves about 2% of the total fellowship. That's what it serves, at best. And the effort and the money and the divisiveness brings me to that same question. Do we still need it? And if we do, and I'm not saying we don't, maybe it's time we had a genuine international convention. Maybe so, I don't know. Maybe England ought to host it next time. Maybe Japan the year after that. Maybe Australia. Maybe we need a real international convention. I don't know. But these are ideas that can be pursued unless we get lazy. On the other side of it, I've been to 3 of them. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. Great experience. Everybody ought to go. I'm not going this time. I can't support it. And I don't need that many people anymore.
Before we go on, I've been asked that there's apparently some people that are having problems hearing while we're doing this simultaneous translation. I need some guidance from the group how we want to proceed with this. Is everybody having problems hearing back there in the back? Is this getting confusing? No. Are you able to keep up with us? We're really good.
This thrills me, by the way. I can't tell you.
So we're doing okay?
Move over here.
You're okay?
Move over here. That's why I moved this room over here.
We'll rearrange.
Well, they're doing that. Well, when I had the privilege of going to Russia for you all in 1988,
84.
something like 88, November of 88. And of course, they don't speak English too well. So we took a translator, and he was one of the most remarkable experiences of my life, because Vlad is a simultaneous translator. One word went in here, and another one came out here, different language. And one of the things that occurred there is a personal experience, particularly at the AA meeting in Moscow. A Russian person would speak, and then it would stop while the translation went on, and I found that gave me time to consider what he had said. While he was saying his next thing, I waited for the English. And it became a real slowed down, meaningful experience. But, this is terrific.
My name's John. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, John.
I've been sober since February of '96. And I'm the alternate DCM for, I believe it's still the newest district, 34. Okay. I just wanted to comment on a few things, and then I have kind of a question and experience. One of the things I wanted to mention about GSO, that when he was talking about how can we support GSO when our groups aren't, and some of the groups aren't. I, for the first time, got one of those birthday envelopes, and I read it. And I was under the impression that you just gave $1 per year. But if you read it, it actually asks for a penny per day plus $1 per year. So my total contribution was like $7 and something. And I believe that I heard him talking that they're going to do a sobriety count in here later. And I think if we added up all the people that were in here, all their years of sobriety, and made a contribution, we started there. That'd be a huge contribution to GSL. That's and I don't think that those birthday things are talked about enough. You know, I think it's really neat. They are around, but you know, they're kind of stuffed in lockers and stuff. I know that in Boulder. And I also want to thank you two for being here. I'm really getting a lot of good experience from hearing and all the interaction in here. I'm really looking forward to doing another one of these, and I hope they do one next year.
John, before you move into what we're you're about to start a discussion. Let me add one little piece of information. In '86, we did some calculating to figure what the overage would be, how many more contributions we would need. If each AA member, known AA member, gave $1.25 a year more than we're doing now, we'd be fully self-supporting. That's all it would take. That was in '86. It's probably $1.50 now.
Don Miller says it's $1.50.
$1.50 now, yeah. That's all it'll take.
And the other thing I was going to mention, we had a really neat incident happen when we first, I think it happened within the first month that the new district was formed. We got a anonymous $500 contribution in the mail. And just being through a lot of area assemblies and hearing about the money, controversies and stuff, I looked at it as a great opportunity to see how the district was going to work. The officers that we had elected and stuff. And of course, there was the give it back to her. We don't want it. We don't need it. We've got plenty of money. And then there was basically the other side, which I was kind of part of, is that, in my opinion, it was probably best to keep it because I don't know why she's contributing it. It may just be just straight out of the goodness out of her heart, or she may be making an amends that way. I don't know that. I shouldn't be the one that just says, here, we won't take this. So what we did was we wrote a really nice letter saying that we had plenty of money, that we didn't need this, but that we were going to keep it and contribute it throughout the channels, GSO, intergroup, that kind of thing. Just spread it out the regular percentage-wise. And I guess there's kind of a question as to whether there's any experience with this happening and whether there might have been another option that we could have looked at, or, we all felt comfortable doing that. It was a really neat experience, and we all felt good about it in the end. But that's...
GSO in England got in real trouble over that one time. Someone made a $25,000 contribution. Well, they didn't have any choice. The law at that time required them to take it. There's since been a change in the law, but at that time they had to take it. They didn't have any choice. There's a lot of information that goes along with. So if we don't even get into big money, we don't ever have to worry about that. But that was a scary one. They didn't have any choice. They didn't want it, didn't need it. It came from an outside source. They had to keep it anyway.
This guy's an out-of-control heckler.
Come forward, young man.
My name's Bob.
Hi, Bob.
David Hansen, alcoholic. I've been continuously sober since October 12th, 1984, and I've got to do a few things in this deal and had the honor of being a GSR that we threw Don's name in the hat to be our area nominee as trustee at large and followed behind Gary for a lot of years. So I was a delegate for panel 47, and I just have a question really to pose because this has been, I had the great honor and privilege of doing the rounds on this idea of cash incentives and taking a lot of heat and email and death threats and phone calls and what are you people doing, and just to try and clarify some things about reconciling some principles, because here's the deal. We take free stuff in AA, and we do it at all levels. If we book 300 rooms, they'll throw in the conference room. We are a nonprofit tax thing under some people's interpretation, so therefore we don't pay taxes on stuff. So it's about reconciling principles rather than semantics. And I think that, as Gary pointed out, at a conference level, we have been round and round about how do you rent a city for a week for 60 to 80,000 people when we are the cash cow golden award for cities on conventions, and they're going to do anything they possibly can. Right or wrong, we, through our trustees and employees at GSO, have chosen that we'll take a discount one way, but we won't take it another way. In principle, is it the same thing? Well, maybe so. And it seems like about not asking the right question is like we'll say, okay, if they offer this to anybody else, we'll accept it. And under that interpretation, we have accepted it. The deal with San Diego, they didn't have a bus system, so instead they handed us back what it would cost us to rent the buses, which we did, and the money was spent on renting buses. But then there were some other things that went on. Well, the operative word here, back to unity, back to group conscience, is about the informed group conscience. And even as a delegate, we weren't getting a straight scoop from anybody. But, you get these, like, secret emails and notices about what they were doing and, the great Satan of AA. And, I mean, this is how we do it, right? So, but I think even as this goes on in an area level in our home group and everything else, is where do we reconcile this principle? We have a tradition that says we don't accept money from outside sources. Okay, money, or what, And I think that's the thing that, I don't know if we're actually asking the right question about paying our own way. Because we don't. And, my experience as an individual in this recovery program is, as long as I continue to live in the lie or the delusion or the reservation, it gets in between me and a relationship with God. And I think as a fellowship, as long as we continue to live under the reservation, the delusion, or the lie, it keeps us from a deeper relationship with God as a fellowship. So I just kind of want to throw that out for thought, because, and it's not in response to what you said, but I know I'm real capable about, look at what they're doing. And, it's us. It's the way we do business. And so it's something that when we go back to our home group conscience, and we go back to even the way we run our lives personally, about the way I do my own taxes, right? About how do you reconcile this principle with the way that we do things. So it's just a comment. I'm glad you brought it up, because I think that, if there is anything that's going to destroy us from within, this is the kind of thing that's going to cause a split in AA, is just getting over a fight with one of those big chunks of money, discounts, incentives, or whatever we want to call it. So that's all. It wasn't so bad.
And so, Dave, would the real question be, do we even need to be doing this?
What's that?
Do we even need to be doing this? That's the question that comes to my mind. And if we are going to do it, how do we bring it into line? Because it's out of line.
If we're going to have it in international,
Yeah.
it's going to cost $150 a person. Are we going to stand up and pay $150 a person?
And that's just the top, right off the top cost. So the answer to the question is, we got to keep talking about it, because we don't have an answer to the question. We have to keep talking about it over and over and over till we come to a resolution. Yes, sir.
Brad Sykes, alcoholic. The Youth Corrections Coordinator for Area 10. And in doing this, I got asked to carry a message to the youth. And I was just down at the CCPAW conference last night at their meeting. And one of the things that came up was along the lines of the seventh tradition. And some of the people looked to me for an answer, and I kind of figured this would be a good place to pose that. But what they were talking about was how they wanted to stick along the traditions. They wanted to follow the principles behind the seventh tradition. And there was a group down in Denver that holds it's a clubhouse that holds a golf tournament that allots some of that money for the youth conferences. And they were offering a contribution and whether we should take it or not. I'm not sure if CCPAW is, an AA function. I don't think it's an AA meeting. I don't know whether or not how closely they should be following the traditions. I just don't know. I sat back and listened to the conscience of the group, and they thought it was all right. I personally don't think that it's the same. The golf tournament supposedly is held by alcoholics. I don't know, and I wanted to pose that question here.
CCPAW and all organizations like that are separately incorporated organizations and can do any damn thing they want.
Sure.
They're not to use the AA name. We went through this with ICCPAW years ago, because ICCPAW started right here in Denver. It's the International Conference of Young People in AA, and there was quite a battle getting that straight about what that was, but it's still a separate organization. The thing about the traditions is these are spiritual principles that are designed to help us survive, and if we're pretending to live a spiritual life and not dealing that way, it will kill us.
Us as Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, or even alcoholics pretending to live by spiritual principles. We either live by them or we don't. There's a great danger in what they're doing. But it's none of our business because it's not an AA deal. They can do anything they want.
Right.
And I don't like it, but that's the way it is.
Not everything is peaches down in Georgia.
No, sir.
Hola, mis amigos. Ahora voy a hablar en español y luego tú tienes que... I just told her that I was going to speak in Spanish and she's going to have to translate for all of you. Just kidding, I won't do that. Oh, no, I can't think that. If I had that much time, I would. I think for me, voluntary contributions also has to do with the fact that one of the things that I see happening in Al-Anon is that somebody stands. Sometimes it's only one person standing for a position. You go, thank God somebody stood. Let's vote them in. And so what happens is that we end up with people in service, be it our GR, be it our DR, DCM, you guys have them, I think. You call them GSR, we call them GRs. And your delegates and et cetera, your trustees. And we say, well, they stood. They got to be okay. I got to trust the process. God's involved. And I totally give away my responsibility. I totally give away this power that I've been given to who knows what, just whoever it is. So one of the things that I have to see is that if I'm going to do my job, I have to know who it is that I am voting into an office. Because one of the things I've seen happen in Al-Anon, when I went back to my first conference, I was in shock. Tom met me that night after the last night, and I said, I'm never coming back here. I never want to see these people again. And a few other choice things that I won't go into. I'd known for a long time that Al-Anon was surviving that World Service Office was receiving 75% of its expenses being paid for by literature. That's a lot, 75%. What we turned into is a real business. Our books, one of the highest books we have, is being sold for $15. Who can afford that when you first come in? We have our own building, but we have, supposedly, it's incorporated. But for some reason this summer, we received $100,000 of excess money that was in our building fund into our Al-Anon World Service Office Reserve Fund. Something's wrong with that picture. At the conference, what I found out and I say we because I was part of the voting group, we voted down softcover daily readers for our prisons. Why? Because they might end up stuck in the warehouse. Something's wrong with this picture. We receive federal funds. We don't receive federal funds. Radio stations and TV stations receive federal funds for our public service announcements. I don't know if AA does that, but Al-Anon does. Something's wrong with that picture. It's my job to speak up. It's the last thing I want to do. God seems to find it necessary to put me in these places. I get to be highly unpopular when I go to conference. I get to be highly unpopular when I speak up at Al-Anon things. And my job is to pray, and to do what I'm supposed to do. The people who elected me to my job know exactly who I am and what I'm about, and then I won't keep my mouth shut. And so my job is to continue to be the person who volunteers her time, her mouth, to the people who can't speak up, who have a problem. And I think one of the first things that regards this specific tradition that we're speaking about is that we don't voluntarily donate our time or our voices and our conscious decisions about who we're going to elect to these really honored positions of tremendous responsibility. Thanks.
My name is David. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is September 1st of 97. I don't have a question at all. I'd really just like to say something, a kind of a burning desire deal. I was elected to the GSR for my group because nobody else wanted the job, and that was the luckiest day of my sobriety. What I realized from what we've just been talking about is a problem that's been going on in my group, and myself and other involved people that have started getting into service work, we thought we saw what the problem was. We thought it was dominant personalities and this and that, whatever. And what's really becoming clear to me now is this idea of being self-supporting. What you guys brought up is being self-supporting just doesn't mean putting money in and expecting somebody from the district level to run everything, but it means getting involved. And the problem I've seen that's really hurt my group, and of course my opinion, is we have some people that have donated things like money or the bulletin board or the new lights, and then they became trusted servants, and it becomes kind of an insidious situation I'm looking at now. It's like that kind of concept kind of spread. Well, I can do this, and then I'll be the trusted servant. I can do this job as a trusted servant, and then I can take care of another trusted servant job, and then I can find somebody to do this job and that. And all of a sudden, when I came into the group, it was kind of passive. It was like I'd ask questions. Who does that? Well, it just kind of magically happens. So I see how really important this tradition is, and I didn't realize it before. Before, it just seemed very obviously stated. But I see that without being involved, without voluntarily contributing myself and my time and other people in my group doing that, and not just donating money, that I see us all really injuring AA. The more passive people become because somebody else is carrying your weight, the more illness creeps into the group. I may not have put it the best way, but I just wanted to say that. So thanks for doing this. I've really learned a lot.
Thank you, Dan. Better move quick.
I'm Danny. I'm an alcoholic. And my birthday is June 26, 1982. And I, too, am also a transplant from San Diego, well, California, but San Diego's better. Anyway, we have similar problems, and, we do things, there's a lot of differences. And one of the things that really, I notice, I'm also the alternate DCM for District 24. And there's some things I've been discovering that happen the same thing. It probably happens everywhere. And so I want to hear you guys' experience on how do you convey this message to the groups. I run into some groups that when it comes to, once they get their seventh tradition, and when it comes to distributing the monies to intergroup, GSO, district, area, and then cover their costs, some of them decide not to, they start picking out which ones they don't want to send to. If they get pissed off at GSO, well, GSO ain't getting squat. I remember from San Diego, a lot of groups, a lot of dissension with the intergroup. They just weren't doing it right. So we ain't going to send them squat. And they come into some meetings in Boulder, and they're not going to send the district squat. And the reason being is because the district is wasting their precious money on sending their DCMs to things like the Regional Service Assembly, Regional Forum, and it's a waste of money. Of course, I have a rebuttal to all of that, but I want to hear what your guys' take on that. Because, our district, we want to send our DCMs to these places because we know there's a lot of groovy stuff out there. And figure areas want to send their delegate to New York, but I'm wondering what kind of groups feel that even that in itself is a waste of money. Because they should be working with a drunk, and that's what they should be working on, none of this New York crap. You know, serious. I hear this stuff. You know, so I'm assuming it happens all around. We're just not the only district. What's you guys' take on that?
Which question do you want to answer first?
Okay, start off with when your group, your home group, and your members are rallying saying, we don't want our DCM going to those service assemblies, those area assemblies, and those regional forums. It's a waste of our money.
My group doesn't say that.
Okay. But I've been to a couple that do, and I'm just like,
I don't have any desire or right to try to change their minds at all. Only my group.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to get involved in that. I don't get involved in that anymore.
I, on the other hand, being young of heart and stout of back, and stupid of mind sometimes, continue to get embroiled in that. The biggest case that I can make for the need for our general service conference structure is I just come right out front and tell them it absolutely doesn't do a damn thing for you. It does nothing for you. You've been given the gift. Aren't you lucky? What about the cat that's still out there?
Or 2 generations on.
Yeah, or 5. Yeah. So after you, and it's, hey, it's called shaming. Sorry. I have been around long enough to see and to recognize that if I am 5, 10, 15, 20 years sober and still think this is about me somehow, I'm in deep trouble. I'm in deep trouble.
There is one thing I do say. No voice, no vote. You get to live with whatever we decide. And that pisses them off. That's better than shaming.
Should we take about 10 here? So we're going to. Okay, the 10-minute plus break. We've had a panel conference, and we thought we'd offer this up to for your edification. We thought we'd try to nail this last 8 through 12 all at one whack. Is there any objection, strenuous or otherwise, to that?
They're not here.
I keep the questions to questions.
We'll entertain that. We may not live with it, but we'll entertain it. All right. What we thought we'd like to do is go ahead and read them, I guess, for the record, and the long form of the traditions, and then I think maybe some just general comments in those directions, and then we'll entertain questions about any or all of them. And hopefully by the end of this next maybe hour, we'll have this thing to a point where we can move on to some of the things. And I've had more than one request. There seems to be some general fear rising that we may not ever even look at the concepts. So we're gonna try to get there. So while we're all getting settled in, I'm going to go ahead and try to, as quickly as I can, read these through. Tradition 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional. We define professionalism as the occupation of counseling alcoholics for fees or hire. But we may employ alcoholics where they are going to perform the services for which we might otherwise have to engage non-alcoholics. Such special services may well be recompensed, but our usual AA 12-step work is never to be paid for. Tradition 9, each AA group needs the least possible organization. Rotating the leadership is the best. A small group may elect a secretary, a large group its rotating committee, and the groups of a large metropolitan area, they are central or intergroup committee, which often employs a full-time secretary. The trustees of the General Service Board are, in effect, our AA General Service Committee. They are the custodians of our AA tradition and the receivers of voluntary AA contributions by which we maintain our AA General Service Office in New York. They are authorized by the groups to handle our overall public relations, and they guarantee the integrity of our principal newspaper, the AA Grapevine. All such representatives are to be guided in the spirit of service, for true leaders in AA are but trusted and experienced servants of the whole. They derive no real authority from their titles. They do not govern. Universal respect is the key to their usefulness. 10, no AA group or member should ever, in such a way as to implicate AA, express any opinion on outside controversial issues, particularly those of politics, alcohol reform, or sectarian religion. The Alcoholics Anonymous groups oppose no one. Concerning such matters, they can express no views whatever. 11, our relations with the general public should be characterized by personal anonymity. We think AA ought to avoid sensational advertising. Our names and pictures as AA members ought not be broadcast, filmed, or publicly printed. Our public relations should be guided by the principle of attraction rather than promotion. There is never need to praise ourselves. We feel it better to let our friends recommend us. And 12, and finally, we of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the principle of anonymity has immense spiritual significance. It reminds us that we are to place principles before personalities. We are to practice a genuine humility. This to the end that our great blessings may never spoil us, that we shall forever live in thankful contemplation of Him who presides over us all. Okay. Well, all right. Let's just get going.
Mark Estenwine, alcoholic, DCM, District 24. I think I can already predict what you're going to say, but I want to ask you this anyway. We have a group in our town who's pretty much run by one guy, and so this principles before personality thing, hits me because I'm trying to go to all the groups in my district and try to bring the district's service to that meeting, but it's difficult because I keep thinking this meeting's going to die because it's not following the traditions. And it doesn't die. It's a newcomers meeting, and this guy keeps getting newcomers to come. I don't know if they're staying sober. Do you have any experience, any suggestions on what to do? I would like to suggest a tradition meeting at times, go to the meeting and suggest that we talk about Tradition 12, but generally there's a lot of crosstalk in this meeting, and usually he just kind of appoints the agenda of the meeting. So what do you do with that situation?
I think I'd just pray for death.
I agree.
Oh, it's been a long day in school, hasn't it? I'll be real honest with you. The group that I attend, it's my home group, that old man's been there since damn near Coolidge was president, and I'm not kidding you. He very much runs that group. But he's been pretty sick, and he's been pretty feeble, and he does have a lot of people that he sponsors that kind of help out with that thing. And I really appreciate it. I don't ever want to forget that. I'm going to try to put some positive spin on this. I don't ever want to forget that it was because of the fact that a few people took a lot of time and were very greatly inconvenienced over a number of years to keep that group going, not knowing my day was coming. But when my day came, there was an AA group for me to get to. And I think sometimes we're pretty quick to judge, who's the deacon and who's the statesman. And sometimes when groups do things that we don't always necessarily agree with on a personal level, I think sometimes we like to throw knives and darts and bullets. I'm not saying that's what's happening in this case because I got a kind of an idea of what group you're talking about. I don't like that guy either. So, but bottom line is, I have to believe. I've been around long enough to see a lot of personalities come and go. Okay, and I have to trust, and this was one of the hardest things for me to learn as a delegate, that I can no longer afford the luxury of trusting always the personalities, that I have to trust that the principles will always prevail. And the principles will always prevail, providing the personalities don't overcome them. See, you want to find a good definition of balance. Where is that in there? How does that work? When does a principle just overwhelm a personality, and when does it, a principle survive a personality? I still go with the idea, though, that if we remain true to our singleness of purpose, that if we live, breathe, eat, and sleep Alcoholics Anonymous on a 24-hour basis and try to be the best possible example of an AA member on a daily basis, I have to believe that God, in His infinite wisdom and probably humor, would allow us to continue on doing what we do. I have to believe that. Because if I don't believe that, the first tradition is not true. That my personal recovery depends on me and my choices today. And I can't buy that. I cannot buy that. So, it's not that Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't have personalities. We do. In this room, there are plenty. You people are out of control back there. Who's the designated mic sponsors? I want to see those people. See what I mean? I have to believe that because I've watched people, good members of Alcoholics Anonymous, live sober lives and die sober. They are my examples. I know this program works. It worked for them. It can work for me. I also have seen people that I have considered to be good personal friends of mine over a number of years who have gone back out to improve their story. Okay? I don't know why they do that. Pretty good, but apparently not good enough. So for them, it doesn't work. I also believe that there might come a day when they may need us, again. And I want to make sure that it's there. You have to believe, too, that if we are informing our newer people, maybe at the district level, and saying, talk about the rising tide of democracy in the group, and those kinds of things, that maybe one or two of them will sit down and start reading this stuff saying, we don't have to put up with this crap. By God, we can have a vote. We can kick them out. Well, we'll get, and they'll start looking. And they'll try. And if it's a good deal, again, the principles will prevail. People will get to stay sober. If it's a bad deal, man, it's going to blow up. And if you're a DCM, you may have to clean it up. How's that for a political answer?
We have only one service out of carrying the message, so I have to refer to the big book for the principle that I use because it's simpler than I can say it. Unless your friend wants to talk further, do not wear out your welcome. Sometimes you will be most successful with alcoholics if you do not exhibit any passion or crusade for reform. If he's not interested in your solution, you may have to drop him until he changes his mind. This he may do after he gets hurt some more. Basic principle. If he thinks he can do the job in some other way or prefer some other spiritual approach, encourage him to follow his own conscience. If I have 10 places to go and one of them is reluctant, I'm wasting an awful lot of time if I spend all my time there. I should put it into where the action is. And they're autonomous.
Oh, I can't see you. That's why I'm standing up out there. My name is Kate Sterling. I'm an alcoholic. And my home group is Sunday Morning Non-Smokers at York Street Club, 3rd floor, non-smoking. And I just want to, since we're kind of bunching up this and then we're coming to a conclusion with the traditions, I had mentioned to Don yesterday that or first thing this morning, that I had happened to be listening to a traditions workshop tape earlier this month, or last month, and a point was made that I had never considered in all of my years of studying the traditions. I'd never ever come across this particular perspective. And it made a lot of sense to me, and it has given me an opportunity to view things in a slightly different way, and I thought I'd share that with you, and that is that the steps are the program of action that we take to survive and recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And the traditions are, as we know, to the health of the group, what the steps are to the individual, but in addition, they are the actions we don't take. And the steps are the actions that we take but the traditions are the things we refrain from. And therein it gets back to what I keep hearing all day today, and that is about personal responsibility. And I can't change anybody, anything. I can change myself, and I owe it to myself and to those that I would help to be the example, and to refrain from doing the things that will harm our unity, and to do the things that will show people what I've been able to achieve in terms of recovery. Thanks.
In the alcoholic mind, sometimes the word unity translates into conformity, and that isn't the way it is. But I have one of those minds, so I recognize that. This does not. You don't have to conform to anything. And once I don't have to, then I will.
I think, too, I have a dear friend of mine, Carl Budd. He's an outgoing trustee up in Rock Springs, and he was talking to my wife one time about the impact that we make on people's lives. I don't know. We touch people as we go along the trail, and we never know really oftentimes who that is. And I found out a long time ago that I really can't afford the luxury of picking and choosing who's in my life. I go with who's there. Kind of like with group conscience, somebody shows up, we have the meeting, and we just go. But probably at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, you can probably count yourself fortunate if you've really and truly at depth touched maybe a half a dozen lives. Now just think of the possibilities that you can work out the math in your spare time, but there's possibilities for really having a deep and profound impact on another person's life are staggering when we do these things. And it talks about it in there, to see this fellowship grow up around you and things like that. Doesn't mean we're not going to fight. It says you may have to fight them once in a while. It says I've had to fight them once in a while. That's some guy trying to steal your furniture. I mean, you gotta, maybe I don't know. But the point I'm trying to make is, I think we can, not so much maybe as individuals, but as a collective fellowship, certainly, affect profound change in people. And if we don't have any hope to offer, and all we have is dismal, boring, stupid glum, there's no attraction there, and there's no, the people that are new are coming in, and they're looking us over, seeing what kind of outfit this is. What am I going to get myself involved in here? What am I going to be willing to bet my life on? Some kind of second-rate outfit? I've been drinking low-shelf booze a long time. Time for top shelf. And this is the top shelf deal for the alcoholics. It really is. And I think I don't think we necessarily need to pat ourselves on the back for that kind of stuff, or impress each other with great tales of how we've healed the wounded, and done, all this stuff. I just don't think that that's necessary. That's kind of I don't see a lot of humility in that. But I believe and have bet my life on this thing, and I've not been disappointed. I really believe it will do what it's intended to do. So I think we've got a real positive situation here, and I think we've got something real to offer people. And I think we can change people. Not as many as we'd like, maybe, but we can change people.
One of my mentors and spiritual guides, he's only 48 years sober currently, 48, 49, something like that, has never done the program the way I do it. Doesn't make any difference. Founded a group about 30 years ago, and his only contact with service was that he was on the board at one of the local clubs, and after 2 years of that, he said, that's enough. And his view was, that's service. So his group didn't even have a GSR. He wouldn't allow it. Didn't want anything to do with it. When I was on the board, we continued our relationship, and he was confused. He didn't understand how he could dislike what I did so much and like me so much. And it was we had breakfast once a week, and we just visited and did things. And pretty soon, just because I am who I am, and I wasn't Because when I had the job as trustee, I'm not a trustee. I was me doing that job. And we just visited. And I want to tell you about class and style. Because his little group eventually one day said, "We really think we ought to become."